Welcome to Crime Secrets, the channel where real investigations and shocking true crime stories are brought to life.
And I've got my kids, and I've got my family. That's all I care about. Nothing else.
They say, every child deserves a parent, but not every parent deserves a child. And this tragic story proves that, with chilling clarity. Instead of viewing his children as small human beings who needed love, guidance, and protection, Mick Philpott treated them like a personal income stream, reducing their existence to government benefit checks he felt entitled to. His greed was so overwhelming that it erased any trace of compassion he should have had as a father, and his actions would eventually shock an entire nation.
Today I want to discover the man behind the headlines and uncover the truth about the guy who has been branded Britain's biggest scrounger.
Listen, you're going to criticise my family, pal, and my kids. I'll criticise you as much as I want.
Sorry,
this is a free country.
Philpott's hunger for attention was relentless. He craved recognition. He manipulated every situation, and he carried the traits of someone who saw others only as tools for his own gain. Diagnosed with severe personality disorders, including psychopathic traits, he created an environment where everyone around him lived in constant fear and emotional turmoil. In this documentary, we will examine how Philpott and the people who enabled him took the lives of 6 innocent children, and what twisted motivations drove him toward one of the most disturbing crimes in modern British history. Mick Philpott was born in 1956 in Derby, England. Over the years, he became infamous for fathering 17 children with multiple women.
I'm one with another young lady, and
Right.
2 on the way.
That's 15 now,
Plus-
plus 2 on the way.
Plus 1 when I was in the armed services, which I've never met.
A number that might seem rooted in affection or devotion, but the truth is far darker. Philpott showed almost no real nurturing qualities. Instead, he was known for volatility, intimidation, and sudden violent outbursts, especially toward the women and children who depended on him. His destructive pattern began early. At just 19 years old, he entered a relationship with a 15-year-old girl named Kim Hill, who initially believed she had found someone kind and trustworthy. But the facade crumbled quickly, revealing a man who shifted from charming to terrifying without warning. Kim soon faced emotional manipulation, physical intimidation, and severe assaults that left her isolated and terrified. Philpott's violence toward her became so blatant that he even attacked her in public. In one particularly brutal incident at a local pub, he struck Kim across the mouth with a pool cue, causing serious bleeding while bystanders froze, too afraid to intervene.
I can't get them back in the kitchen. Yeah, terrace house. Yeah, but we've got the police on the way. Have you any idea what's caused the fire? I've no idea, mate, but it's been woke up by the alarm.
His aggression only escalated. On another occasion, he broke her arm and fractured her kneecap with a hammer after accusing her of giving too much attention to a baby she was caring for. As a British Army member, he frequently returned from postings filled with suspicion, using unproven accusations as an excuse to strike her again and again. His cruelty reached horrifying levels. Once, Philpott shot Kim in the groin with a crossbow because he believed her dress was too short. She was still in school, yet she lied about her injuries repeatedly, trying to protect him even as the violence worsened. After 2 traumatizing years, in July 1978, Kim finally gathered the courage to end the relationship by sending him a breakup letter. Philpott's response was terrifying. He went AWOL from the army, broke into her home, and launched a frenzied attack while she slept. Armed with a 9-inch knife, he stabbed her 27 times, telling her menacingly, "If I can't have you, no one else will."
And we can't express our gratitude to everybody that's been concerned with the case, with what's been going on. I've actually been down to our home, and what we saw, we just cannot believe it. We grew up in a community that's had a lot of problems with violence and God knows what else, and to see this community to come together like they have, it's just too overwhelming.
When Kim's mother rushed in to save her, Philpott turned the knife on her as well, stabbing her 11 times. Against all odds, both Kim and her mother survived, thanks to her mother's determination to crawl to the phone and call for help despite her severe wounds. When paramedics arrived, they found Philpott calmly standing on the stairs, still holding the blood-covered knife. It was the first major warning sign of who he truly was, a man capable of extreme violence, manipulation, and a complete lack of remorse. When paramedics arrived that night, Philpott reportedly told one of them, "I wouldn't bother. She's a goner. I'd done a good job on her." A statement so cold, it stunned even seasoned responders.
Tell me what you said to him then. What you said about how many times I went up ladders.
I lost count how many times I went up the ladders.
What did you say about me trying to go in?
You tried everything you could to get in. Like I said to him, I wanted to run through the flames up the stairs.
Would you cry when you were saying it? How bad?
Not really, really bad, but I did cry.
Hysterical.
Kim's injuries were catastrophic. She died twice, once in the ambulance and once on the operating table, before doctors managed to revive her. Surgeons discovered that her stomach had been sliced open and her back, arms, and legs stabbed repeatedly. She suffered collapsed lungs and punctures to her bladder, kidney, and liver injuries that left medical staff amazed that she survived it all. During the trial, Philpott tried to twist the narrative, claiming he had acted in self-defense. But the evidence was overwhelming and exposed every part of his story as a fabrication. He was found guilty of attempted murder and grievous bodily harm, receiving a sentence of 7.5 years.
You and Lisa. It's my fault that our family's gone. It's my fault we lost our children. It's my fault we lost the other 5 children. It's my fault we lost Lisa. I should have seen it all coming up. It is my fault.
Shockingly, he served only 3 years and 2 months due to what official records described as good behavior, a decision that effectively handed him a light punishment for a near-fatal attack. While behind bars, Philpott wrote letters to Kim expressing remorse, even proposing marriage, a disturbing attempt to regain control over someone he had nearly killed.
Yeah, and that's it. A few discrepancies, that's all it is. When we shake it back, I said I was going to go out for a drive at night. I can't remember saying that. Vicky said you were stoned. That's it, we didn't smoke.
Upon his release, the trauma he caused lingered deeply. Kim continued receiving counseling for decades, describing her years with him as a nightmare she could never fully escape. Reflecting on her experience, she warned others by saying, "Do not say no to Mick Philpott. You don't say no to him if he doesn't understand the word," capturing his dangerous mindset with frightening accuracy. After being released from prison in 1986, Philpott married Pamela Lomax. Together they had 3 children, yet his abusive behavior never changed. Pamela lived in fear, fully aware of what he had done to Kim and terrified of what might happen if she reported him. Her only hope was that he would eventually fix his attention on someone else, which tragically became reality in 1993.
We therefore have come to the view that this sentence cannot be criticised. The judge was careful in reaching the conclusion she did. She gave very cogent and clear reasons for it. She assessed against her primary findings of fact the blameworthiness of Marie Philpott and arrived at a sentence that reflected that very severe degree of blameworthiness, together with the immeasurable harm she had caused by the killing of her 6 children, for whom, like any other mother, she had an absolute responsibility. We have, after an examination of the circumstances and a careful consideration of the judge's ruling, come to the conclusion without any hesitation that this appeal must be dismissed.
That year, at age 37, Philpott began a relationship with a 14-year-old girl named Heather Keogh, a situation that immediately shattered his marriage to Pamela. Heather ran away from home to live with him on her 16th birthday, and the pair went on to have 2 sons. She later revealed that Philpott was abusive from the start, beating her for not having a daughter and even encouraging his older sons to treat her violently. His desire for a larger family became another weapon of control, and when Heather failed to conceive again, the punishment intensified. At times, Philpott locked Heather outside in the garden as a form of discipline, and she told authorities he once held a knife to her throat when she tried to leave. Eventually, she managed to escape by climbing over a fence, though she was forced to temporarily leave her children behind until she won them back. in a long and painful court battle? Heather later described Philpott as a Jekyll and Hyde figure, charming at first, but quickly transforming into someone violent and unpredictable. In 2000, Philpott met 19-year-old Mayred Duffy, a single teenage mother recently out of an abusive relationship. To her, Philpott appeared like a rescuer, someone stepping into her life at a moment of vulnerability. They moved in together quickly. Philpott assumed responsibility for her young son and proposed to her in the hospital after the birth of their first child, Jade, the following year. It seemed like a new beginning, but as history would show, this was only another chapter in a long and dangerous pattern. Philpott soon began another relationship, this time with Lisa Willis, a 16-year-old orphan and single mother who entered his life at a moment of deep vulnerability. She eventually moved in with him and Mayred, becoming part of a household shaped entirely by his controlling presence. Despite the unusual arrangement, Lisa and Mayred grew close, finding comfort in each other as they navigated the challenges of living under Philpott's demanding rule. Lisa even said she treated Mayred's children as if they were her own, showing how heavily they relied on one another for emotional support in a home where fear often outweighed stability. Disturbing pattern becomes clear when looking at Philpott's choices. Every significant partner he pursued was a teenager when they met him, creating a dynamic where he held all the power while they held none. These were vulnerable young women seeking security, and instead they were drawn into a cycle of manipulation and control. Philpott married Mayred in May 2003, with Lisa standing beside her as the bridesmaid, a moment that publicly displayed the unconventional family structure he had been building. From that point on, Philpott lived with both women and fathered 11 children between them, all while residing in a cramped 3-bedroom council house. Both women worked to support the household, while Philpott remained unemployed, collecting their wages and government benefits. He continued encouraging more pregnancies, not out of affection, but as part of a strategy to increase his financial support from the state. When he requested a larger council house, the authorities denied the request simply because none were available, a decision that deeply frustrated him. Mayred was 7 months pregnant with his child when they married in 2003. At the wedding, Philpott took the opportunity to defend his lifestyle publicly, insisting he was proud of his large family and rejecting criticism from those who questioned his choices. He blamed the local council for what he called inadequate housing conditions and argued that, as someone unemployed, he deserved additional government assistance. The narrative he pushed was one of entitlement rather than responsibility. Determined to gain public sympathy, Philpott sought media attention. In 2007, he appeared on the Jeremy Kyle Show, a talk show known for heated debates, where he once again defended his unemployment and family structure, claimed he could not find work due to negative media coverage surrounding his past, and insisted his criminal record made employment impossible. As the host questioned him about responsibility, parenting, and job prospects, Philpott became visibly agitated, eventually erupting into an argument. In a moment characteristic of his confrontational nature, he insisted he had undergone a vasectomy and responded with an offensive gesture, saying, "Talk to that, pal. Talk to that." Philpott introduced Mayred and Lisa on the show, openly presenting his two-partner arrangement and acting as though public disapproval meant nothing to him. He even claimed he would divorce Mayred to marry Lisa, then divorce Lisa afterward, purely so she would not feel excluded from sharing the Philpott family name. He later had 2 more children and became known in the British press as Britain's biggest scrounger, after reports showed he was receiving around £25,000 per year in government benefits. Yet even with this media attention, his plan to gain support for a larger home failed completely. Later that same year, Philpott appeared in a documentary series where Conservative MP in Whitacombe spent a week with his family in an effort to understand their lifestyle and encourage him to make meaningful changes. She arranged 3 potential jobs for him, including one at a barrel-making company. But in typical fashion, Philpott did not show up for work on the very first day, leading the opportunity to collapse before it even began. This moment further highlighted his unwillingness to take responsibility or break away from the lifestyle he had carefully crafted. In the documentary, Philpott was shown living in a caravan parked in his own garden, creating an unsettling arrangement where his wife and mistress would rotate nights with him, as if this was a normal household routine. Former MP in Whitacombe, who spent a week observing the family, stated that Philpott showed no genuine care for anyone around him. She reported that he referred to both his wife and mistress using degrading language, and she noticed something. Even more heartbreaking, none of the children ever approached him for affection or comfort, as though they instinctively knew he was not a safe presence in their lives. Although outsiders often struggled to understand why the women stayed with him, or even accepted such conditions, public perception suggested they managed to get along. But behind closed doors, tension between the three adults had reached an intense breaking point. Philpott repeatedly pressured Mayred to divorce him so he could marry Lisa, asking her 3 separate times despite knowing how painful and disruptive such demands would be. His behavior only worsened with time. In 2010, Philpott received a police caution after he slapped Mayred and dragged her outside the house by her hair during an argument. But his cruelty toward Lisa was just as severe. He struck her with a piece of wood, threw a cup of hot coffee at her, and tightly controlled her movements, preventing her from leaving the house or even speaking to any men. Life under Philpott became a constant cycle of fear, tension, and manipulation for both women. By February 2012, Lisa had reached her breaking point. She quietly prepared her escape, knowing confrontation would be dangerous. She told Mayred she was simply taking her 5 children swimming, but instead she fled the home and moved in with her sister. This was the only safe way to leave without triggering Philpott's explosive reaction. But her departure ignited a storm of anger and resentment inside him that would soon lead to unimaginable tragedy. 3 months after Lisa left, Philpott was still furious and locked in a heated custody dispute over their 5 children. In his desperation to maintain control and continue receiving financial benefits, he devised a shocking and reckless plan with Mayred and a close friend named Paul Mosley. The goal was to burn down his own home with his children inside and frame Lisa for the crime. The timing was calculated to occur the day before the custody hearing, hoping the disaster would cast Lisa as negligent and earn Philpott's sympathy from authorities. The plan was disturbingly specific. Philpott and Mosley intended to squeeze petrol through the home's mail slot and ignite it, while Philpott would wait outside to heroically rescue the children, presenting himself as a devoted father in court. His motivation was a mix of anger, financial greed, and a desire to secure an even larger council house. But the reality of what he planned was unimaginably dangerous. On May 11, 2012, at 4 a.m., Philpott's plan spiraled out of control in the most devastating way imaginable. The fire spread far more rapidly than anyone anticipated, creating a deadly cloud of smoke that filled the home within seconds. The outcome was catastrophic. 6 children, Jade, John, Jack, Jesse, and Jade, inside the home, while their older brother Dwayne passed away in the hospital 2 days later. All 7 deaths were caused by extreme smoke inhalation. Fire investigators reported that temperatures in the upstairs bedrooms exceeded 500 degrees Celsius. Conditions so extreme that survival was impossible. Police quickly confirmed the fire had been deliberately set using petrol poured through the letterbox, officially classifying the event as arson and confirming that 6 children had been murdered. The truth was undeniable. All of the victims were Mayred and Philpott's children except for Dwayne, who was Mayred's teenage son from a previous relationship. Jade, the eldest girl, was only 10 years old. She was known as bright, kind, and admired by her teachers as a child, full of promise whose life was cut tragically short by events she could never have understood. 9-year-old John was remembered as cheerful, always smiling, and endlessly polite, a child whose gentle presence brought warmth to everyone around him. Jaden, only 5, adored close cuddles with friends and family, often hiding his face shyly when receiving attention. Jack, 7, was the quietest sibling, described as calm and pleasant to be around, while 6-year-old Jesse stood out as the lively voice of the family with a bright, energetic spirit. Dwayne, at just 13, was the eldest victim. He was known as caring, charming, and deeply protective of his younger brothers and sister, acting as the steady anchor in their home. No one in the surrounding community could have imagined that a father would be capable of such devastation. Many locals who interacted with Philpott insisted he loved his children and defended his lifestyle publicly. Some argued that the negative portrayal of the family in the media never matched what they believed they had seen in real life. A local man named Bobby Sutherland was so moved by the tragedy that he helped organize a charity to support funeral expenses for the 6 children. Fighting back tears outside the burned remains of the family home he said, "Yeah, they can slag him off, but he loved his kids. Yeah, you make mistakes, but you don't deserve that. Nobody deserves that." His words reflected just how carefully Philpott crafted his image as a devoted father, hiding the truth beneath layers of manipulation and charm. Initially, investigators questioned Lisa Willis and her brother-in-law, as they were closely connected to the family's complicated living arrangement, but both were quickly cleared of suspicion. Meanwhile, several witnesses described Philpott's behavior during the aftermath as deeply unsettling for a man who had just lost 6 children. Reports stated that he seemed almost excited by the media attention, displaying reactions that felt theatrical rather than grief-stricken. One mortuary manager even recounted that Philpott engaged in inappropriate joking while viewing the bodies of his children, at one point placing a family liaison officer in a headlock, an act that stunned those present. As part of their investigation strategy, police arranged a formal press conference where Philpott and Mayred spoke publicly. During the event, Philpott thanked emergency responders, neighbors, and supporters, and announced the family's decision to donate Dwayne's organs to help save another child's life. He expressed gratitude for the community's support and asked for privacy, instructing reporters to direct all questions to law enforcement. Yet instead of easing concerns, this public appearance raised new alarm bells for investigators. Officers at the scene noticed Philpott's bizarre behavior during the press conference. Instead of displaying sorrow or restraint, he appeared overly relaxed and even flirtatious. One female officer reported that he called her gorgeous and hinted at wanting her to visit his hotel, behavior completely inconsistent. With a grieving parent and deeply inappropriate given the circumstances, the turning point in the investigation arrived when forensic teams discovered key pieces of evidence. A discarded petrol container and a glove were found near the home, and in November, forensic testing revealed traces of petrol on the clothing of Philpott, Mayred, and their accomplice Paul Mosley. These findings showed investigators they were dealing with a deliberate act, not an accidental fire. To gather even more information, police planted recording devices inside a transport vehicle used to move the couple and inside their hotel room. These recordings revealed disturbing and incriminating conversations that shattered any remaining facade. At one point, Philpott admitted responsibility, saying it was his fault they had lost their children and family. In another conversation, he asked, "You definitely sticking with the story?" and insisted, "I didn't mean to do it on my life," demonstrating clear awareness of their coordinated attempt to hide the truth. But even more unsettling, a recording captured Philpott watching to go Mayred perform a sexual act on Mosley, with Philpott commenting, "I'm proud of you because you didn't want to do it." A moment that displayed a disturbing level of control and coercion within their relationship. These shocking recordings provided investigators with undeniable proof of planning, manipulation, and guilt, details that would soon come to define one of the most disturbing criminal cases in modern British history. During police interviews, Paul Mosley revealed that he had engaged in sexual activity with Mayred over a snooker table just hours before the firing act. Investigators believe Philpott encouraged to keep Mosley loyal and deeply entangled in the plan. Philpott later admitted to having 3 or 4 sexual encounters involving both his wife and Mosley shortly after the deaths of his children, behavior that highlighted the disturbing dynamic inside their partnership. These recordings, combined with physical evidence such as an unused ladder at the back of the house that was meant to be used in Philpott's staged rescue attempt, heavily implicated all 3 in the arson plot. On May 28, 2012, Philpott and Mayred were arrested on suspicion of murder, and formal charges followed 2 days later. In November of that same year, Mosley was also arrested after forensic testing detected petrol on his clothing. During the trial, the court learned that Mosley had been bragging online about being a suspect Evan, mentioning it on dating sites, behavior that deeply concerned investigators. Despite his bravado, police believed his involvement may have been influenced by Philpott's control, suggesting coercion played a role in his participation. By December, prosecutors reduced Mosley's charge to manslaughter, and shortly after, the murder charges against Philpott and Mayred were also downgraded to manslaughter. Evidence showed that while the trio did not intend to kill the children, they intentionally set the fire in order to frame Lisa Willis, hoping to gain custody of her children and increase benefit income. Their motivation, as the investigation revealed, was a combination of spite, financial greed, and the belief that a larger family would lead to a larger council house. On April 2, 2013, Philpott, Mayred, and Paul Mosley were all found guilty of manslaughter for the deaths of 6 children. Philpott received a life sentence with a minimum of 15 years before parole consideration. Mayred and Mosley were each sentenced to 17 years, with a requirement to serve at least 8.5 years before being eligible for release. Mayred later appealed her sentence, but the Court of Appeal upheld the original decision. Judges emphasized that petrol found on Mayred's clothing proved she had taken part in setting the fire, a clear sign that the plan was not spontaneous but arranged in advance. They also noted that she had lied repeatedly after her arrest, continuing to conceal the truth even during the trial. In her sentencing remarks, Mrs. Justice Thirlwall said it was evident the arson plot originated with Philpott, but she stressed that Mayred's children died because she consistently put her husband's wishes above their safety. In November 2020, after serving half her sentence, Mayred was released on license and transported by convoy to a halfway house. According to a source quoted by The Sun, the level of security surrounding her release resembled the treatment given to a public figure, not someone convicted in connection with the deaths of her 6 children. Her release reignited public outrage and reopened questions about accountability, remorse, and the long-lasting impact of this devastating case. Mayred was also given a new identity upon release for her protection, sparking widespread criticism from the public and victim advocacy groups. The Center for Crime Prevention condemned the decision, calling it appalling and arguing that offenders involved in the deaths of children should be required to serve their full sentences without exception. Paul Mosley, meanwhile, was released in May 2021 after completing half of his 17-year term, but he returned to prison the following year after breaching the conditions of his parole. In November 2023, Mosley was released again. A parole panel stated it was satisfied that imprisonment was no longer necessary for the protection of the public, a conclusion that left many people questioning the fairness and consistency of the justice system. While Mayred and Mosley now live freely under supervision, Philpott remains behind bars, continuing to serve the minimum 15-year term of his life sentence, a man whose crimes continue to shock those who study the case. Philpott has long been described as manipulative, controlling, and emotionally detached. Psychologist Glenn Wilson characterized him as clinically a psychopath and an exhibitionist with antisocial personality disorder, traits that aligned with the disturbing behavior seen throughout his adult life. According to investigators, Philpott viewed children primarily as a financial resource, exploiting the welfare system while maintaining complete control over the women in his home. This tragic case raises painful and important questions. Were the sentences too lenient for the scale of the crime? Did Philpott benefit from overly light punishment decades earlier, particularly his attempted murder conviction from the 1970s? Many argue that if the justice system had responded more firmly back then, the 6 young lives lost in 2012 might still be here today. These are difficult questions that continue to haunt those who followed the investigation and trial. Thank you for watching this documentary. If you have thoughts about this case, its outcome, its warning signs, or its long-term consequences, share them in the comments below. And if you want more true crime breakdowns like this, remember to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. More stories are on the way, and each one reveals another hidden corner of human nature. See you in the next video.